Hello, my beautiful souls, and welcome back to the podcast. I am very excited for this episode. I have on certified financial planner and trauma of money expert, Shannah Game. She just came out with a new book called Unraveling Your Relationship with Money. And I know that we all have our issues around money. Money is a really charged topic in our world, and she really brings a lot of compassion and a lot of connection and meaning and healing to this conversation. So I think you're really going to enjoy it. But before we dive into that, I want to invite you to join my newsletter, which has migrated over to Substack. So the link is in the show notes, but it's the same beautiful weekly newsletter that comes out. I just brought everybody together. My word for this year was simplify. And so I was creating content on Substack and creating it on another platform, and I decided to bring it all together. And so you don't need to sign up for Substack if you just sign up using the link in the show notes, or go over to my website and use that sign up form. The newsletter will come directly to your inbox. You can also join Substack, and you can get more of my teachings over there because I post notes daily. And I'm planning for the year of 2026 to start hosting some community events like community meditations, community teachings, things like that. So if you're interested in going deeper, you can absolutely go over to Substack and create yourself an account. But if you're not interested in that and you just want the weekly reflection sent directly to your inbox, use either my website, katiefrenas.com, or the link in the show notes to sign up. I also want to remind you that 2026 is a year of new beginnings. So in 2025, that was a year of shedding. If you listened to my episode a few weeks ago where we came up with our word for the year, we talked about how last year was a 9 in numerology and this year is a 1. So 9 is all about shedding what doesn't serve you, and 1 is about creativity and stepping into where you're meant to be and what you're meant to be doing in this new phase of your life. So it's a great year to start coaching with me. This is what I do with women. I help them to get unstuck. I help them to create a life that feels really fun and exciting, meaningful and purposeful. A life that you're excited to like hop out of bed in the morning, and you get to do things that just give you that sense of deep, deep satisfaction. I was teaching a yoga class yesterday, and it was my first of the new year. And I decided in honor of my word for the year, which is simplicity, that I would make the class really simple. So we didn't do any complicated poses or transitions. We kept it extremely basic. We moved slowly. We really just went back to the basics. And I can't tell you how many people came up to me after that class saying how much they enjoyed it and how much they really needed that. And that is living your dharma, right? What I did was I tapped into my own intuition. I had this feeling, this sense that this is what I wanted to bring into the world, this sense of simplicity and slowing things down. I did it, and it felt really good in the moment when I was doing it. It felt really right. And then I served these other beautiful humans who later came up to me thanking me for the experience, right? So that's the kind of deep meaning and connection I'm talking about. Connection to yourself and to your intuition and to a higher source. Because when you're really connected to what you're meant to be doing, to your soul's purpose, to your dharma, uh, it's as if the divine consciousness is flowing through you. So I went into that yoga class with a vague plan, a sort of plan. I had some structure, but after that, I just let the divine run through me. And so what was meant to come out of my mouth came out, right? And the messages that were meant to be received were received. And that's one type of connection, right? So deeply connected to my own intuition, deeply connected to this universal consciousness, the divine, God, whatever word you like to use. And then because I did that, because I first connected inward, I was able to connect with others and serve others and then have that deep satisfaction that comes from serving others and making the world a better place. So if that is what you are looking for, if that is what success in midlife looks like for you, then please use the link in my show notes or head over to my website, book a clarity call. Let's talk about how we can help you create a life that feels that good. All right, before we dive in, I just want to give you a little teaser for what you're about to hear, some of the big topics we covered. So Shannon, she really focuses on women in midlife healing their relationship with money. And she says that we we face particular challenges, women in midlife, related to money. We have unique money challenges because of how our energy changes during this phase and how our hormones are fluctuating during this phase. And that presents different challenges for women than it does for men. And she really dives into that and how we can manage our relationship with, our response to, our feelings towards money at this stage of life. We also talk about a concept that I've been playing with a lot, not just in relationship to money, but all areas of life, which is what is enough, right? Defining for yourself what is enough. We often think more is better, and we really think that when it comes to money. But that really gets us stuck in a cycle of constantly grasping, constantly chasing, and constantly in fear that we won't have enough. So we really talk about how we can define enough for ourselves when it comes to money. The other thing that we're diving into is nervous system regulation, because Shannon claims that 95% of our money behavior is based in emotion. Only 5% is really actually related to the numbers and creating a budget. And so we really need to heal from a nervous system level our relationship with money. And she talks about how we can do that. So this was a great episode, particularly for us midlife women. I hope that you enjoy it. If you really love the topics we're talking about, please head to the show notes. You can click on the link there for Shannon's book and dive even deeper. Shannon, welcome to the show. I am so grateful you are here today.
Thanks so much for having me.
I'm really excited about this conversation. I love the topic of money, which is what we're going to be talking about today, because I have had so much struggle around money. And it's been so enlightening to me to learn about money and learn about how money is not just money. It means so much more, and where some of my struggles with money came from and how I can start working to unravel them. So I know if I'm struggling with it, somebody else is too. So thank you for being here and sharing your wisdom.
I have been doing this work for over 20 years now, and I will say that I am a firm believer that there is not a single human on this planet that does not struggle with money. And what's interesting after doing this for so long, it's that we all have the same struggles. We just are dealing with different numbers. We're different ages, we're different demographics, we have different careers. But at the foundation level, we all struggle, especially women, with the exact same things. So if that can make anybody listening feel a little bit more at home in the conversation we're going to have, then I'm really glad to hear that.
Oh, that's amazing. And I want to dive into when you say the exact same ones, I want to dive in. But before we do that, how about you tell our guests what it is that you do and how you came to do what you do?
I am a classically trained certified financial planner and also a trauma of money expert. So that is really where like my expertise lies. However, I like to play in a space that isn't occupied very often. I call myself a financial healer. I wrote a book that came out this year called Unraveling Your Relationship with Money, which is really my journey with money, even as a money expert, as well as so many other people that I worked with. So my hope is that when you're reading the book, you're like, oh my gosh, that's me, and that's me,
Yeah.
and that's me, and that's me.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to create something that felt it's not a spreadsheet book, right? It's a feelings book, because my mission is to really make money less about math and more about meaning. And that's really the place where I have seen people change because 95% of our behaviors around money are emotional. They're not the
Mm,
math piece. And yet
yeah.
when we're talking about money, we tend to go straight to the math, right? Like how do I
Mm,
do X? How do I do Y? How do I pay off my debt? How do I stop spending so much? And we get stuck in these loops and patterns and we're like, why do we keep doing the same things over and over and over again, right?
yeah.
Well, we've
Yeah.
got to go to these other pieces we're going to talk about, which is the story and the emotions and the generational money patterns. So
Yeah.
I have a, as most of us do, a really interesting pathway to this. Actually started in college a business that I ran for 5 years. It was the first national student film festival. So I'm
Hmm.
really a creative at heart. I ended up selling that to a Hollywood producer about 5 years after running it. Got an MBA and was like, I don't know what I want to do. I have all these weird skills. And so my dad had been in the financial industry his entire career. He's like, I'm kind of bored. Why don't you come work with me? And so from day one, we were working with people with just massive amounts of money. And then I
Yeah.
would see like kind of my peers and cohorts, and I would see those same struggles, those same
Yeah.
issues. And I'm like, okay, A, nobody really knows about personal finance.
Right.
And B, everybody kind of struggles with the same thing. But I started to see these patterns of emotion. So I just started to do what I love to do, which is speak and write. And I started a podcast in 2015 that I actually sold this year.
Oh, wow.
And it became a New York Times top four money podcast. And it was just me like really kind of digging into this philosophy around money. And now I play in this weird space where I talk about midlife and perimenopause and menopause and money, and I bake cupcakes and use them as metaphors to kind of get people into the space of like, hey, we can talk about this topic about money from a really different perspective. And so
Yeah.
that's just my mission, is to make this interesting, relatable, and something that is just not so darn scary.
Oh, that's so great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And what I'm hearing you say is when you said my book is a feelings book, it's not a spreadsheet book. And what that says to me is if you get the feelings straightened out around money, I don't want to say right feels like the wrong word, but if you get your feelings kind of untangled around money and view it in a different perspective, then the spreadsheet will work out on its own. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. And I think sometimes there's this like misnomer that if we get the feelings right, then like suddenly, like the sky opens up, right? And money falls from the sky. And that's not at all what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that if we can develop these healthy patterns and stories and beliefs and get rid of some of the shame, when we're dealing with the math piece, it's kind of like we can see it with fresh eyes,
Hmm.
and we can maybe take some chances that we might not normally take. We can
Yeah.
go, oh, what about this? Or what if I did this? Because we're no longer kind of just stuck in this like quicksand of emotion around money. So for me, it's a big door opener. And
Hmm.
then when we come in with the math piece, when we come in with the plan, you're more able to stay on task, like, and build the healthy habits around it, because we're not just spinning in all these stories and beliefs and shame and all the places we kind of get locked up when it comes to money. And it doesn't mean it won't come back.
Right,
It
right.
comes
Yes,
back very
yes.
often, like sometimes on a daily basis. But
Yeah.
what it means is that you have these kind of tools in your toolkit that you
Yeah.
can pull out and be like, oh, I'm stuck in a moment of feeling anxious or feeling shame or doubt. Oh, let me go to a tool to help me work through those
Hmm.
emotions. Then I can go to the math piece, right? So
Yeah.
it's just it's like I liken it like a peanut butter and chocolate moment, right? Like they go together. And so
Yeah.
for most of what we've been taught about money, it's we're taught about those two things. Like the emotion, like, oh, women are just emotional around money. Well, we're all emotional about money, and it's
Yeah.
time that we talk about that.
Yeah, yeah. And so many things as you're speaking and there's like little light bulbs going off on my head. A lot of times feel like money to many people feels overwhelming. The concept of money, what to do to money, to make money, how to invest money. all kinds of everything around money can feel very overwhelming. And typically when there's overwhelm involved, people go one of two directions, which is to micromanage and do, right? Like, how am I going to make more money? I'm going to work really long hours. I'm going to go for that promotion. I'm going to start a side hustle, or I'm gonna do, make money. Or they go the opposite direction. They're like overwhelmed, head under covers, ignoring, not paying attention. And I feel like the balance comes in between, right? It comes in where you are in a place of regulation around money, which is you didn't use that word, but that's what it sounded like to me. Like you release the fear, you're in regulation, and when you're regulated, you can open up to all the creative possibilities that exist for both making and managing money.
Exactly. I love that word. And I think we can even incorporate with regulation like ease and also
Hmm.
acceptance, I think are other two other really powerful words because we're all going to make choices around money that we would probably go back and change. And so I
Hmm.
think there needs to be just a level of acceptance as well
Mm.
about where we are, where we've
Yeah.
come from. And if we keep ourselves kind of locked in the place of like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't have done this or I should have done this, then we lose sight on the opportunities that do exist. And
Yeah.
we all live in a society, especially those who live in the United States, where scarcity is the marketing message that drives
Hmm.
everything. It's on
Yeah.
social media, it's on TV, it's in,
Yeah.
ads. And so it's normal that we're going to feel freaked out about money. It's normal that we're going to feel confused, right? Because there's
Hmm.
all these acronyms and words that we love to
Yeah.
use as financial
Yeah.
experts. It's all just gibberish, right? At,
Hmm.
at the core, money is pretty simple. We
Yeah.
we should probably not spend more than we earn. We should probably make sure that some of our savings is growing more than inflation, so more
Hmm.
than 3%. So
Hmm.
we should probably invest some of our money, right?
Hmm.
And we should just probably look for opportunities to make sure that we're earning what we're worth, right? Make sure
Yeah.
that we're getting the salary that we're worth or whatever it might be. And yeah, we should probably bring in an element of like rest because if we are working, 60, 80, 90 hours a week,
Yeah.
all of these things are going to be a little bit more complex. But
Hmm.
building wealth is actually like a pretty simplistic process.
Hmm.
And so I think it's even in the simplicity that we make it complicated.
Yeah.
So if you're listening, you're like, I don't understand money. Like it's very simple. It's like if we were training for a marathon or trying to lose weight, right? There's an
Hmm.
element of change that has to exist, but it's pretty clear. Like if we're trying to lose weight, we probably need to eat a little less and
Yeah.
exercise a little bit more. It's the same thing around money, right?
Yeah.
And so then that really, to me, like points an even bigger spotlight on the power that the emotions and the stories and the beliefs plays in this whole
Yeah.
process.
Yeah. And I want to get to that in 1 second. There was one thing I wanted to go back to where you said um most of us have probably made some money decision that we later regret it. And the first thing that popped into my head when you said that was that either you bought something that you regretted or you invested in something that you regretted. But there is, or yeah, those are two great examples. But the opposite is true too. So my husband and I both say that we're too risk averse. So we will often always take the sure bet, right? Versus I have a friend who her and her husband are very different. She's very risk averse, but he is not. And over the years, he has kind of forced things to happen. Should I say, I shouldn't say forced, that's not a great word. He has
Nudged.
strongly encouraged certain risk taking that has really paid off for them beautifully. And so anyway, there's this two sides to that same coin, right? Of regret of making a decision that maybe didn't turn out in your favor financially, or not making a decision that could have turned out well in your favor. And I personally am working at becoming less risk averse, so that I can nudge my husband in that direction because I think it's again that scarcity, how you were talking about this message of scarcity. It is omnipresent, and it is potent. It is so potent. And I think it holds us back a lot.
And there's a couple really important things at play here. So we all have our kind of natural money personality, right? We're usually either in the camp of being risk adverse, like you're talking about, or being someone who's just willing to take on a little bit more risk. And there's all sorts of variations in between those two sort of ends of the spectrum. But the important thing to know is how important our childhood is. So by the age 7, this is scientifically studied, our money
Mhm.
personality, our money behaviors are developed. So if we look back at what we heard and saw in childhood or didn't hear and didn't see in childhood, those have essentially just put a giant stamp on who we are and how we operate around money. So I like to tell people we're like 7-year-olds driving a financial bus playing adults, right? And so we're like, why is it so hard for me to be risky, right? Well,
Yeah.
likely we were developed that way as young creatures.
Yeah.
And we don't have the understanding of like, oh, that's actually what's happening. Like I need to go
Yeah.
back and look at that version and look at what I heard and look at those stories and beliefs and bring them into kind of my adult self and go, okay, what do I actually believe is the adult version of myself?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm willing to take on a little risk. Well, what does that look like for me,
Mhm.
now as an adult version? And oh, can I give myself permission to do it differently than how I was raised around
Yeah.
money, right? Can I
Mhm.
look at it just from kind of my own lens? So it's really almost having these kind of adult conversations with your younger self
Yes. Yes.
saying, I'm going to choose this and not this, and I got this, and you can let this go. And yeah, I saw this, but I'm going to do it this way, or I'm going to borrow some of these things that worked and some of these things that didn't work. So all of that goes into play in just, being able to say, I'm going to move a little inch, right, and be a little
Right.
bit more risky. It's like we have to
Yeah.
bring, all the characters into the play in
Yeah.
order to make that movement.
Yeah. And even like you're saying, even that inch, that small movement, it doesn't have to be a huge movement. It can just be a micro movement. But when patterns are that deeply ingrained and lived for that many years, they're really hard to shift. So small movements feel really hard and big.
And your definition of risk is going to be very different from my definition, from your
Yeah.
husband's, from everybody else listening. So it's really important to develop what that means for you. Like,
Yeah.
what does it mean for you to be slightly less risk averse, like to have a slightly more risk? And for you, it might be something very, very small, right? It might be just taking maybe I'm just going to inch up my 401k by 0.5%. Like maybe that's being more risky for you, right? So
Right.
we all get to define, and I think that's the important thing too, is we each get to define what all of these things mean and what this
Yeah.
looks like in our lives. And I think with money, we're just so used to comparison, and
Hmm.
that gets us in a place that just it doesn't work.
Yeah, yeah, it's so true. The comparison piece is huge. It really is. I'm glad that you brought that up because I think we do that a lot and it makes us question our own knowing and what's right for us, right? Because maybe whatever that other person is doing is right for them, but maybe it's not right for you. And when we get caught in comparisons, sometimes it's hard to tell the difference. I have a question. So let's talk about the emotions around money. You said
Yes.
there are very common emotions. On top of that, I'd like to layer in, are there emotions that are more common for women versus men and women of midlife? So women of a certain generation versus other generations.
Interestingly, most of us, male or female, share the same emotions that get us stuck. We might
Okay.
express them a little bit differently, but pretty much it's shame and guilt. Those are the two, people that come to the party for most
Yeah.
of us. And shame is the number one. Like if that is just the one that drives almost all of us. Now, interesting when I have conversations with men around it, they may talk about an experience rather than naming shame, but ultimately that is that is what is at the core. And I think what really drives it is this idea of two things. One, I should be further along, but I'm not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the second one is I'm bad with money.
Mm.
And both of those come from this kind of scarcity place where, you mentioned this before, this idea of hustle, right? Well, if we just worked harder, and I think for women, we get really stuck in this, especially in midlife, because I'm in my 40s and I'm in early perimenopause. And I will tell you, I am tired.
Yes, same girl, same.
I'm exhausted. I
So
just did
tired.
an Instagram story this morning where I was like, I want to like eat a big chocolate cake and sit in a corner and stare at a wall for like hours. Like that would just be so happy.
I need to follow you on Instagram.
And so it's this tiredness
Yeah.
that I think for us women, then we feel even more behind because we already feel behind. We earn less. If we are, of color, we're a different, demographic. We earn even less than our male counterparts. So we already feel like we're like stretching just to, reach kind of an equal equality place. And then when you add in like hormones changing and midlife and all of these things, it makes it worse. And so I find that for women, the shame piece gets more and more ingrained, right, when we get to midlife. And so the primary work I do with women in this age bracket is using money as a mirror and
Mm-hmm.
and figuring out how do we climb out of the shame, because the antidote is not another budget. It is just more
Yeah.
compassion, and it's working within the boundaries of the energy we have,
Mm-hmm.
um, the resources we have, and kind of coming up with a plan that is gentle and easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I would say that most of us, it's shame and guilt, and it is again rippled across. I don't care how much money you make. We all feel like we should be further along. We should know kind of the magic potion for money. Like we should have had this thing figured out. And
Yeah.
the secret is no one has this thing figured out,
Mm-hmm.
really.
Yeah.
And there actually isn't a secret, which is the whole other secret.
Right.
And then, money is a thing that we don't have these types of conversations.
Yeah.
We certainly don't talk about the things that have gone wrong, which is really, I feel like the juice, like that's where we need to have these conversations, because silence is what carries the shame. And so if we
Yeah.
can be brave and open up and say, like for me, yeah, I've been in and out of debt many, many times, and I am a
Mm-hmm.
financial expert. So
Mm-hmm.
I have made probably every version of every money mistake you could make.
Yeah.
And I'm still here and I'm still going and I'm still moving. And
Yeah.
I just think that if there's a place of opening up and having these conversations and looking at it not from a place of like brokenness, but just from a place of like, hey, we're humans, and um, this is how we can connect, and
Yeah.
hopefully how we can get rid of some of that shame.
Yeah, I love that you're sharing that because it's so true. There is the veil behind money. It's a topic that we don't discuss very much amongst friends or even sometimes families. I know a lot of families are very closed when it comes to money. They don't talk about money with their children when their children are growing up, and it's not talked about amongst the adults. It's considered impolite in society, and more is always considered to be better. And that's not always, I don't believe that's actually always the case. Personally, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. But when we think more is always better or more is always perceived to be better, then we're always behind someone, right? Someone's always has more than us. And we get caught in this cycle of not enough. And I'm actually really surprised that you did not name the emotion of fear, because I would think that fear would be a big one, fear of not having enough. Whatever that means, right? I mean, there's not having enough to put food on your table, not having enough to retire, not having enough to pass on to your children. There's like varying levels of not enough. But I'm just surprised that fear wasn't one of those emotions.
And I'm glad you bring that up because enough is definitely the statement that I hear most often, not enough.
Hmm.
And I hear this from women across the board. Almost every single person that I interact with or work with, the first statement is not enough. But I think it comes from a place of it almost comes from a place of shame, I think, because it's this idea of I should be further along, so I don't have, and because of that, I should say, I don't have enough. I think is really kind of where that comes from. I think the fear comes in um, as almost like a freeze emotion where we get so afraid because we feel like we're so behind and there isn't enough that we just don't do anything.
Yeah.
Is where I see that. But enough is actually a place I work a lot with women on because you're very right in how you're describing this. For me, if we don't know what it looks like, if we can't tangibly define it
Yeah.
and place an emotion with what that is for us, we're
Hmm.
never going to get there. We're
Yeah.
always going to feel like there isn't. So actually one of the first places I start with women is let's define what this thing enough is. So then we
Yeah.
at least know like what target we're
Yeah.
shooting
Where's the
at,
goalpost?
right?
Yeah.
Um, and when you can do that, that is where I see a lot of shame and even fear lift because it's like, oh, okay, like I have the map. I know where I'm
Yeah.
going. Then we can just deal with all the emotions that kind of come up along the way. But definitely enough is a major theme that I hear
Yeah.
just I almost laugh now because it's just instinctual that it's one of the first things that come out of people's
Come.
mouths.
And when you just help them define that, that enough, what that
Mhm.
means to them, is it an actual number that you define, or it's more about the way in which they are able to live? Like how is enough
It's
defined?
both. So we need to define the emotion piece of it. So how do you feel? What activities are you doing? How do you spend your days? How do you spend your time? All of those aspects. How do you want to feel like, when we think about where you want to live, right? And we're
Hmm.
trying to figure out, housing. How do
Yeah.
you want to feel? Okay, well, what kind of place will give us this feeling? Where is that? What does it look like? Is
Yeah.
it a house? Is it a condo? Is it a tiny home? It's really
Right.
getting microscopic, but then also, yeah, what's that number and why that number? Right? A lot of us are like, "Oh, I want to have $1 million in the bank." Well, why?
Right.
Some of us don't need that much. Some of us need a lot more than that. So
Hmm.
let's figure out what is the composite of that particular number. And maybe we're so fixated on a certain number that is not even relevant for us.
Right. Right.
Sometimes I work with people and they're like, wait a minute, I don't need that. And I'm like, no, let's look at the
Yeah.
numbers of it. Oh, and then there's this giant sense of relief.
Yeah.
But we're taught with money like these big, you gotta have six-figure salary, you gotta have $1 million in your retirement, you gotta this, you gotta that, all these like big markers
Yeah.
that for a lot of us just aren't relevant. And so
Yeah.
it's figuring out the math piece, but also the emotion piece. And when we can put those together, then we can really have our plan for enough.
Yeah. And to have that sense of peace must be so amazing for your clients to be able to look at the bank account and instead of feeling that like clench in the belly or that shame or guilt to be like, oh, like that's enough. What a gift to people's lives for them to be able to feel that and to know, my daughter's applying to, this is a little bit of a side note, but it's relevant. My daughter's applying to college, and we don't know what this is going to cost us next year for her to go to college. And we have a guideline on what we'd like to spend on her tuition and so on and so forth. But, there's a lot of unknown. And so now I'm kind of walking around with that feeling that in my gut, like, oh, like what are we going to be on the hook for? Like, how much money is this going to cost us? And there's really no way to know until we get a financial aid package and we look at all the things and make the decisions. And it's a very uncomfortable way to live. So to be able for people to be able to have that definition of what's enough and then create a life that supports that definition and to feel at peace, whew, it's like everything.
Well, and for you, I think in this moment, something good to focus on is can you find a piece of ease, a sense of ease in the complete unknown, right?
Yeah.
Can you allow yourself to bring that in? And can you also
Yeah.
allow yourself that if that number is higher than what you think, to also open yourself up to there are lots of different options
Yeah.
around that number, right? So I think when we're in the unknown place, specifically around money, our brain spirals into the fear anxious place. But if
Yeah.
we can sit in the unknown, almost like it's almost like a gift that it is
Mhm.
the unknown,
Yeah.
and pull ourselves back. I often tell people that our first thought around money is usually always going to be negative.
Yeah.
It's always going to be something like, the train is like going off the tracks.
Right.
But our second, third, fourth, fifth thoughts, we actually have a choice in what those are. So if our
Yeah.
first thought is like, oh my gosh, this is going to bankrupt us, like we don't
Right.
have, great, cool. I'll entertain that thought. But my
Yeah.
second thought could be like, there's so many different ways we can make this work.
Hmm.
And I'm just going to trust the process right now, or whatever
Yeah.
whatever that is for you. Could be like,
Yeah.
I'm just not going to freak out right now, right?
Right. Right. Yeah.
And so we can actually train our nervous system. Money is a very somatic experience. It's a very
Yeah.
body felt experience. So we can
Hmm.
train our nervous system and our brain to not freak out.
Yeah.
And that helps us again when we come to the numbers piece of like being able to look at all of our options from a place of like, okay, there are a bevy of different things we can do,
Yeah.
other than
So
just want to climb in the corner.
I, with the chocolate cake staring at the wall.
Which there is a moment where that is
Yes.
also more than okay to do.
Yes, very acceptable. Um, so how, that's a great, so glad you said that. So about the nervous system. So how do you help people with this? And if you do, how do you do it? Because I have found personally in my life that these thought patterns, these beliefs, these things that we picked up before the age of 7 are so ingrained that the body reacts before I've realized I've even had a thought. Now, in that moment, I can become aware of the thought and reorient. And is that the practice? Is it just doing that over and over again? Or are there other things you do to help your clients
That
calm
is
themselves around money?
that is part of the practice, but there are so many different tools, and it kind of depends on, the type of woman that I'm working with and those stories and beliefs that we're working with. So the first thing is just uncovering this story around money. What is it? What are the belief systems? What are the sayings? Like what is the baggage? Like what
Yeah.
is it? And when we can name it, then we can start to kind of pull it apart and say, okay, which parts do we like? Which
Hmm.
parts are truth? And which parts do we want to just sort of send away? Which ones can we let
Yeah.
go of? There's so many different exercises. I have an exercise called financial forgiveness, which is this process of setting a timer on your phone for 15 minutes, writing out everything that you wish you could have, would have, should have done around, like everything that you're just like, oh, this just, bothers me. It burns me. I'm mad about this. Walk away for 24 hours, come back to it, read it. Because with fresh eyes, you often see patterns, you see all sorts of things that emerge.
Yeah.
And then we got to get rid of it, burn it, shred it, tear it up, scissor it, whatever, right? There's a
Yeah.
real connection between writing something down and releasing it specifically around money. So I have lots of tools like that seem simplistic,
Hmm.
but what they do is they send this big message to your nervous system that I don't have to be hostage. And the second piece is just being almost like a detective. So when you know you're going to interact with money or you're going to have a conversation with your partner around money or your child or anything, for most of us, it's when we look at our bank balance,
Hmm.
right? I want you to just stop for a moment, pause, and notice what's going on in your body. Like, are your shoulders getting tense? Is your heart racing? Are your palms sweaty? Are you feeling a little bit manic? Like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And then I want you to ask yourself, what is the story behind this? So why is this happening?
Hmm.
Am I stuck in one of those like regrets or belief systems around money? Can I examine it? Can I go, well, is this even true? Like, do I need this? Do I not
Hmm.
need this? Where is this coming from? Right. So it's
Yeah.
this unpacking process. And it is inch by inch because our nervous system is so wired, right, to
Yeah.
react this certain way around money. So it's taking these little steps, acknowledging, throwing out what doesn't work, but really taking inventory of what is happening in my body
Yeah. Yeah.
when I'm interacting with money and why is that happening, and sort of using it as a mirror to reflect back. And then that just helps your nervous system go, okay, we can do
Yeah.
this differently, right? Again, it's like we're
Right.
running a marathon. The first step is we just got to put on our shoes and get out the door.
Right. And so the stories you talked about, what is the story behind what I'm feeling? Are there common stories the way that there are common emotions? Do you see like stories coming up over and over again, patterns?
Yeah, we've already talked about some of them, but the two most common are I'm like, there we go, look, I'm bad with money, right? Look at
Okay.
me, like I can't be trusted with money. Nobody should pay me more money. I'm just, some variation of that, which sounds
Yeah.
silly when we say it out loud in this context, but that's really
Hmm.
like our brain just goes immediately there. Like, look, I'm bad with this thing. I can't do
Yeah.
this thing. It's no wonder I'm not, where I want to be. Like, I just can't
Yeah.
do this thing. So that's one of the most common. Um,
Okay.
I would say another one is the further along. Like, I should know this by now. Like, I should have figured
Hmm.
this out. I'm smart. What's wrong with
Yeah.
me? Maybe I'm not that smart, right? And so we start to like just go down this
Right.
spiral of convincing ourselves that we don't know what we're doing,
Okay.
and we're just doomed to fail. And so, those two common uh, kind of stories play
Hmm.
in different variations. We all have different languaging around them, but
Yeah.
essentially at the core, those are kind of the two things that are going on. And so what happens is we'll convince ourselves like, yeah, see, I shouldn't get that raise at work. Like, or that client shouldn't, yeah, that's right. That client should pay me more money, right? Because
Yeah.
I can't be trusted around money. I don't make good decisions. I don't, no. And it's not always that linear for us, right? It's
Right.
broken up in these chunks. And we're like, why didn't I ask for more money? Like, why did I
Yeah.
do that? Or why did I go out on a shopping spree? Like when I'm trying to pay off debt, like, why did I do that?
Yeah.
So we kind of get stuck in these loops, and they're very normal. And there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with the loops. And the the fix to it isn't perfection because that doesn't exist as well. The
Hmm.
fix is like just having some awareness, bringing a little intention, maybe a little pause here or there before we do, some things. And then also like giving ourselves, okay, I'm going to do this like 70% of the time.
Right.
Well, 30% of the time, I'm going to muck it up and that's going to be
Right.
just fine.
Yeah. 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 Giving yourself permission to not be perfect is is perfect, right? Because if we set the expectation of being perfect, we will never meet it because there's no such thing. And then we just feel like we're failing and we're behind, and there goes the shame guilt spiral, and we end up where we began. So I think that's great advice to just say it's a practice, it takes time, it's slow, you're not going to be perfect at it. But if you keep inching your way forward, change will happen over time.
And this midlife time, I think, is really for women so important, right? Because this is a rebirth time as well.
Yeah.
We are essentially going through like a reverse process
Yeah.
of what we did when we were coming into puberty. And
Hmm.
so it's also a time for us to shed the things that are no longer working for us. And those can be roles, expectations, or identities. But also a time to look at some of these emotions that maybe have held us hostage around money, and
Mm-hmm.
even how we, um, I say it this way, like how we do money, right?
Yeah.
And so I think we can use this time, when we're feeling tired and our brains are spiraling and all sorts of things, is just to like, whoa, okay, maybe this is like the best time to figure out what I want it to look like going forward and know
Yeah.
that I can change it all up. Like this
Yeah.
gives me full permission in midlife and these changes to change this
Yeah.
and decide what I really want. And maybe it is, for a lot of us, it is letting go of the hustle part and going, ooh,
Mm-hmm.
this does not serve me.
Yeah. And at this stage too, I don't know if there's a lot of talk right now in the culture about gray divorce. I don't know if you've heard of this term.
Yes.
So, women in midlife and even older actually are getting divorced at 2 and 3 times the rates of women under midlife, the age of midlife, I think under 40. And so, you want to talk about a financial upheaval, divorce will certainly shake things up financially. And so, it really is a time for women to get comfortable with money and take control of their own personal finances, which is something that I don't want to speak for all women. I don't know what the ratios are. Maybe and you can share with us. But I can tell you in my personal life, amongst the people that I just am close with, it is often the men that manage the money. And so, if you enter into a divorce or your spouse dies, um, now you're really responsible for those finances, and so it's really important to get comfortable with your relationship with money.
And what's interesting is, although a lot of men manage the money, about 85% of women make the buying decisions. So
Mm.
we're in the driver's seat of where that money is being spent,
Oh, that's very
which is
interesting.
very interesting. And yeah, I went through a divorce in my early 30s and lost everything, and
Mm.
started over with a heap of debt.
Oh,
And so I will tell you, no matter how steady or rocky your relationship is, the best thing you can do is know your accounts, have
mhm.
access to account numbers and passwords. This is just safety for any situation, death, disability,
Yeah.
divorce,
Hmm.
and also to be able to have tough conversations around money, I think is really important. And I often tell couples, no matter what phase of your relationship you're at, bring curiosity into the conversation.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about, I've known you for 15 years, but I don't know, how was money talked about in your household growing up? How did
Hmm.
that make you feel? Like,
Yeah.
bring a sense of curiosity rather than blame, which we tend to do around money. It
Hmm.
goes a long way.
Yeah.
But definitely, if you're in a place of, looking at wanting a divorce, make sure you have an attorney on your side.
Yeah.
Make sure you know the numbers, make sure you have access. There are forensic accountants that can get in there and dig things up if there are things that are hidden. But, you have an equal seat at the table
Yeah.
in that process. And I promise you, if you're going through that, you can get through it.
Yeah.
I have gotten through it. The only way through it is through it. So,
Yeah.
but just, collect your evidence and, stand up for what you're worth in that process.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in that process you can't be afraid to stand up like you're saying, to dive in. You can't put your blinders on because it- you could you could be cheated out of your own money potentially depending on who's involved in the situation. So I think that instinctual desire that some people have to put their head under the covers and hide, that doesn't serve us in any arena, but it really doesn't serve us in the case of divorce.
Absolutely. It's one of the best times to work on the nervous system
Yes.
regulation around money. So,
Yes.
And you can do it. And there are loads of people out there to help you through it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I promise you, you can survive the process.
Yeah, yeah. And come out better on the other side. I really do believe that too.
Yes.
I've had quite a few friends who, it is sad their marriage did not work out, and of course that's sad for everyone involved, but they made it through and they're really happy in their lives. And there is beauty on the other side, even though the struggle it is a struggle. Yeah. Mhm. Well, thank you so much for being here. Tell us where we can find your book and where we can be in touch with you if we want to have more contact with you and your content.
You can find my book, Unraveling Your Relationship with Money, literally everywhere books are sold.
Okay.
And I also have a midlife money audit, which is a fun little 5 to 10 minute. There's journal prompts, things to think about if you're like, I want to dig like a little bit more into this.
Right.
So I will send you the link to that as well.
Oh,
And if
fun.
you sign up for that, it's free. Then you can get on my newsletter and hear about all the other things that I rant and talk about.
Amazing. Amazing. I'll put all of that in the show notes. And the two exercises that you mentioned, are those in your book? Are those a part of your book?
Yes, they
They
are.
are. Okay.
Absolutely. There are
Okay.
so many different tools in my book, journal prompts, tools, all sorts of things. So
Okay.
it's one of those books you can kind of just keep coming back to in
Yeah.
whatever season you're in and be like, oh, okay, this is helpful now.
Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. All right. I will put all of that in the show notes so everyone has access to it, and I'll be getting a copy of your book. So thank you so much, Shannon. Thank you for being here. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate everything that you shared. All right, my friends, I hope you enjoyed Shannah and our conversation. I really did, and I had some light bulb moments. I hope you came away with the same thing. Just a reminder, in the show notes, you can sign up for the newsletter. You can grab Shannon's book. Her website is there as well, and you can book a clarity call with me. Let 2026 be the year you get unstuck and you start feeling deeply peaceful, purposeful, and alive in your own life. I will see you next week, my friends. Namaste.